Hello, can you listen to me? Yeah, can someone say something here? Let's see. Can you listen? Let's see if it works this. Oh, I got a like here. Hi, Yus. How are you? Good. Thanks for joining. So just gonna give some minutes for people to join us. If who else is joining? Are you guys behaving isolated? Um, Trying our best here to stay isolated as well, but still trying to provide some material to you guys. Let me try to see if I can also make the Twitter live just in case. Here we are. Hopefully it'll work the Twitter as well. So as you've probably seen, I start to put material on Moodle. So let's just give some minutes for people to join us, and I can start to discuss a little bit of the points that I made. Just for half an hour, won't take too long. So hopefully, hopefully it won't be too problematic, and my Wi-Fi hopefully will cope as well. I wonder if I can see who's following me. No, I can't really. See here. Oh yeah. Hi, Carlos. ¿Cómo está todo? All good. Can you listen? Yeah. Bien. Great. I think from now on, for the rest of my life, I'm only gonna do YouTube live. It's way more comfortable. I can have my coffee and I can relax just talking. So let's see how it goes. Are you guys doing okay? Yeah, all healthy. No one coughing or symptoms of coronavirus. Hope your families are okay as well. I know it's quite. I just apparently can't go on Twitter. Not my Twitter is not working, so we're just gonna stay with the YouTube here. Well, that's good to know, Carlos. That's good to know. Ilse, can you see Carlos' message on the live chat? Can other people see each other's message on the chat? Just you can do some testing. Anyone? Can you better hear me? Good. So oh great. Hi Noemi. Good. Okay, so we're getting people. Hey, we have already more than 8 people. So let's see who else is joining us. Sarah, ciao, Sarah. Great. So you can see each other. So you can write on the chat as well if you have questions or if you want to talk. And hopefully the video will stay recorded as well on the YouTube channel. So for the people who cannot join us today because of connection, they can watch later. Carlos, my family is okay. My family is in Italy. My brother in Italy. It's basically locked. They've been locked for a week or so at home, not going out at all, just going for the supermarket and back, just trying to behave as much as they can. In Brazil, things are still not very clear. People are still trying to understand what's happening there. So there's still a lot of things going on in terms of public activities. So we're expecting to start to change there dramatically soon, which is interesting because it connects a little bit with the point that we have today in terms of outdoor spaces, in terms of how people use outdoor spaces. And it's funny how now that we need to stay at home, how we can actually start to think about these outdoor spaces or or outdoor events as places of that we almost miss, but also the impacts that can have on people's lives, in people's leisure, and people's mental health, and so on. So it's interesting to see now in this kind of lockdown situation that we are, that outdoor open spaces, public spaces, and public gatherings, the importance that they have for society. So it is actually quite timely to see these things while we are forced to stay at home most of the time. So you've seen, hopefully you guys seen that I've uploaded videos and audios and papers and website links on our Moodle page. There's a lot of things there in terms of some theory, but also in terms of some examples and discussion. So we're trying to do the best to try to give you material and make sure that you learn about the elements that we were supposed to be discussing in class. So you've seen you've probably seen today on the news that they postponed the Euro 2020, and that obviously has a huge impact for not only Glasgow, who would be hosting that, but obviously, you may remember that they were looking for volunteers to work on the fan zone in George Square and so on. So we'll see a huge impact on that as well. The university is open for us in theory. They've now started to ask us if we don't need to be at the university, we don't need to be, for us to not go and try to do things more at home. So I think we're going to be a lot of staff will start to stay more at home and try to avoid university, but I don't think they're going to fully disrupt the university just now. So there's still services open there. I was there yesterday. The canteen is open, the library is open, but yeah, there's not many people around. And I don't know what would be the next steps. It's difficult to predict just now what would be the recommendations. So going back to the concept of open spaces that we have to do today and discuss today, you obviously please watch the videos of your colleagues who discuss that as well, but there's a lot of material online. So if you think about open space and public spaces, you're going to find that a huge diversity of events, festivals, and gatherings happening in open space and public spaces. Some of them for free entry, some of them ticketed. And there's always a huge debate there. And you're going to see on the work that of Andrew Smith that I published and other publications that you have around the discussion about, well, if it's all on public space, should we charge? Like basically the local community cannot use their own leisure space for a week, 2 weeks, and so on. And actually, if they want to go, they need to pay. Was a talk about that, about the Hogmanay, and how much they closed Edinburgh for Hogmanay, and obviously the impact that it has on the local community who doesn't have access. And actually, there's a lot of disruption because you have lots of tourists coming for those gatherings in public spaces, disrupting public transport, increasing prices of things in the city, and so on. So there's more and more debates, and these outdoor events are more and more under scrutiny because of the potential negative consequences they have for local communities and people who live in the towns and in the cities. So again, in terms of the things that we've seen in Glasgow, and we see in Glasgow, we see a lot of things connected to music events such as the Transmit and the summer sessions, for example. But we also see things that are much smaller in terms of, like gatherings at George Square or Glasgow Green. We see a lot of runs and races, right? So charity races around the city, and we see a lot of parades. And there's always the debate about, the impacts they have and the importance they have, because one thing or not, they also have a social importance of bringing people together and making people changing lifestyles, encouraging behavior, encouraging community cohesion and cohesiveness in terms of bonding people, in terms of changing the profile of the city. Right? And again, if you look to the history of Glasgow, for example, these public events and spaces, hi Matilde, How are you? I hope you're okay. Thanks for joining. So, if you look at the recent development of Glasgow, similar to what I spoke last week about the conferences and conventions and business, the public events also played a huge role in terms of how Glasgow is seen and how we see things further developing in Glasgow. And obviously, like there's lots of events where start to appear, public events where, if it was maybe 30, 40 years ago, people wouldn't feel as safe to go. But because you change the profile of the city, you change the characteristics, you change the social dynamics of the city, people feel more comfortable to go to these public events. Carlos, just to answer your question, and before I go back to the concept of today, in terms of deadlines, there are some deadlines being changed. For this module, the deadline is quite late already. I think it's towards the end of April. So at this stage, I'm not planning to change deadlines. We will be in touch with information about that, but considering it's quite late in April, at this stage, I don't see it much as a reason to change. Even more because there's 150 students and it takes a while to mark them. And when you submit, we only have a couple of weeks before the meetings to approve the grades. So I won't have enough time to mark anyway. I will be quite rushed. So I don't think I can extend that deadline at this stage because of the volume of submissions and because of when I need to have the grades and provide the grades to the meeting that approves them. Okay. But I will email and we'll keep the communication on about that. Okay. So going back to public spaces and open spaces, again, another interesting thing is the development of like multicultural cities, right? So if you think about Glasgow and obviously the multicultural elements of Glasgow, some of you have been to, for example, the Mela Festival on the west end of Glasgow, and have seen how the park there has been adopted to embrace the diverse population of Glasgow, embrace different cultures, and actually it has that very important role of opening public spaces for people to actually shape culture, to people to engage with each other, to learn about each other. And again, as I said, it adds a lot to the city, adds a lot to the region, adds a lot of the community, and helps to educate the citizen about other cultures and behaviors and so on. So I think you can see a lot of examples, and I think there is a lot of examples that I provided on Moodle for you. But there are a couple of other things that I would like you to think about. So the examples are there, and you can obviously look and think. But I think one of the points that I wanted to bring to you is the role of the event manager on that, right? So if you think about the role of event manager and venue manager, which at this stage, when you're talking about public spaces, we'll have to be aligning very close to government bodies, right? To council, to other bodies, right? Like Glasgow Council or Glasgow Government and Glasgow Scottish Government and Event Scotland and so on. So obviously there is not an isolated approach to managing the space, right? But on that scenario, even if they need to align with stakeholders about the management of the space, they also have a responsibility to design that space in order to provide or to achieve the aim they have for the event, right? So if you think about Transmit, right? So the people who organize Transmit DF concerts will have to align with the Glasgow Council, will have to align with police and fire services and all these other stakeholders. But then when they design the staging, when they design the entrance and the influx of people, obviously they will be guided by security services and police officers because of the flow of people. But they also need to think about what they want to achieve in terms of the design. And as I said on the video that I put on Moodle, the Transmit, when you think about Transmit, you don't think you're going to Glasgow Green. You're thinking about going to Transmit. And what does that mean? It means that they transformed the the park in this hyper real environment where people forget that they're in Glasgow. They forget they're in the park. During the concert, they are at Transmit, and that's really significant. This is a bit different from other types of events that are open spaces, such as I gave the example, such as uh, the Lands in Mayfest here in where I live, or the Halloween parade in Paisley. And the reason for that is the Halloween parade. They are in Paisley. The Paisley is around them, and they don't try to create really this hyper real environment where you forget where you are. Right? So depending on the festival, depending on the event, they have or not these characteristics of shaping and designing the space for you to be immersed on that and kind of forget what's around you. So a lot of music festivals have that. So, if you look to Glastonbury, for example, they talk about Glastonbury Village. So they talk about obviously almost these unique and special spaces. Okay, but this is always connected to the planning of the event, and the role of the event manager is to think about the customer journey that the attendees will have, from entry to where they're going to look, what they're going to see, what are the clues that will remember them, and how they're going to interact with the elements around them. And those elements can be natural elements that are there, or can be constructed elements that, such as a stage, right, that are man-made for the event itself. Okay, so thinking about those spaces is quite important because it gives a different meaning for the cities, right? So if you think about the type of society that we have now, a lot of those spaces have an economic value, right? So Glasgow, we are very lucky to have so many parks and so many open spaces. But in other cities and other places, the number is limited and the characteristics are limited. And the other thing is also some places will say, well, why do I need to have this park when I can build 100 houses and sell them and make money, right? Or why should I have this park here that would cost me in terms of maintenance, in terms of keeping the grass cut and things like that, right? When actually I could sell the land, make a lot of money, and develop the area and creating a shopping mall, right? So whenever we start to develop in terms of society that thinking about those, the economic value of those open spaces, the things start to change a little bit. And that's where a lot of the events that are for profit started to be interested in those spaces. And the reason for that is, it's very appealing for councils if a company goes there and say, can I hire George Square for 3 weeks to do that? Obviously, they make money that helps them the maintenance of the place, right? They create the attractiveness of it, and it helps them with, with the costs of having those spaces. So again, it is really interesting to see now how commodification of spaces and in the process of gentrification starts to work. Right? In Glasgow, for example, if you go to the east end of Glasgow, you will see areas like that. There is a lot of redevelopment of public spaces, and a lot of them was part of the legacy of the Glasgow 2014 Commonwealth Games, to change a little bit of the profile of the city, but at the same time, you have the whole process of gentrification as well, which makes you usually can have the risk of isolating poor people because the prices start to go up, and people with lower salaries and won't be able to afford. So the more events you have on that area, right, you may be more appealing, you may be more attracting, but there is also consequences of that. And in terms of public policy, that's what you need to think is how you balance that. So obviously, suddenly, living around Glasgow Green became very interesting for people who want to rent their houses to Airbnb during those 2 weeks. And the more events you bring to Glasgow Green that are private, the more interested you have in people in terms of buying places that are around that area to be able to rent for short-term accommodation, right? And that obviously increases the people wanting to buy houses there. It may increase the price. It reduces the people who are from the community to afford buying a house there. So there's always these cascading effects and ripple effects that we need to think when we organize events in public spaces. Again, a lot of this criticism is not to say that organizing events in public spaces and open spaces are not good. Actually, they're really good. They can be very beneficial, can be very good in terms of bringing community together, in terms of education, in terms of developing cultural capital and things like that. But they're also important to recognize some of their issues. So, having said that, and I promised that I wouldn't go beyond half an hour, I wonder if you guys have any questions or anything that you want to say. You can always write. I know Carlos wrote a couple of things there, but if you guys have questions, you can also ask. And if you have examples as well, so it's always good to hear some examples from you guys and from your cities and things like that. And they're important. And just before we finish today, then just a couple of things for you to be aware. A lot of the points that I made as well, I made on the video and on the voice recording that I did at Moodle. I will try to put, if this live here saves, I will try to add that on Moodle as well. And I hope it seems to work okay, so I hope to try to use that again next week, right? And I hope you guys can also read the material that I made available to you. Okay, so as you can see, obviously we couldn't have Ashley today with us, and the reason is obviously Ashley is also kind of self-isolating herself. So we'll see if we can have her next week at some point. But yeah, so she apologized for that as well. Okay. But again, I think in this time of crisis, the most important thing is communication. If you guys have questions, if you guys have doubts, if there are anything that you guys want to know more, you can always ask and can always be in touch. Okay? Great. Any other point, anything that you want to ask? No? I'm going to give you some minutes if you want to ask something before I end the stream. Thanks, Carlos. I hope you could hear me, and I hope the points were clear. There is, as I said, there's lots of material on Moodle, so please have a look. There's a couple of videos very interesting there, including one about the London Olympics. So thanks for joining. Hope it wasn't too long. Thank you, Lara. I didn't know you were there, so thanks for joining. I hope you managed to hear as well. I hope you guys keep safe. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, Noemi. So thank you all guys for joining. It's good to know that some of you joined us. That's great. Thank you, Sarah. I hope you guys keep safe, okay? Hi, Augustine. Thanks, mate. Thank you for joining us. I hope was clear enough, and I hope you guys could learn something on those 20 minutes of a chat, together with the material that is online and the videos that we sent to you as well. Yeah, stay safe, guys. So I'm just gonna end the stream here, and then I'll be on emails and things this week as well. So I hope to see you guys soon as well. Okay. Thank you.